Welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here, and I have a very special guest today that I'm sure you would love to meet. Probably somebody who you don't think typical crocheter when you imagine a crocheter. I have Maurice Greene, who is an MMA fighter. Hi, Maurice. Welcome to Fiberchats.
Hi, how you doing?
So we've met at H&H. I actually met you in person, and let me tell you, it was very um, first time ever I felt really tiny and petite next to you.
I'm a rather large individual. What'd
I
you say?
mean, which is like my question to you, right? Like when people imagine somebody crocheting, even if they thinking it's a young person, because a lot of young people nowadays crochet, they don't think about a professional fighter.
No, absolutely not.
Do you
Not in my
ever
line of business.
do you ever get like funny stares when you crochet in public?
Before I was actually a fighter, I used to knit, and I worked at this company in Palatine, Illinois. And I used to live in Chicago, right by the North and Clybourne Metro stop. So I used to take a public transit, and I used to knit during on public transit. And I wasn't even an athlete at that point in time. I was just 330 pounds, 6'7". I was a big guy. So they would be like, but what you're making it looks really nice. I sold a lot of stuff on that train, actually, on that commuter train. But no, I'm not sure what you would think your average crocheter would be like. But I feel like my products turn out to be better than what you think I'd be able to crochet. People have told me that. Well, I saw you crocheting, but then I see what you make, and it's like, wow, okay, you can really crochet.
Tell me how you learn. How did you learn to knit and then crochet?
So I had a clothing line called Monkey Business Decor, um, and the tagline is actually tattooed on my wrist. It says "Die Free, Live Fresh," and it was a sneaker brand that was in like these local where they sell Jordans and hard to find sneakers, and um, we wanted to do something new, right? Because everybody was doing the same thing. So I went to work that day, and this girl Lauren was in there crocheting actually she was knitting with this yarn right here,
Mhm.
this exact same color. And I said, "What are you making?" She goes, I'm knitting a scarf. My mom showed me how to knit." I'm like, "Man, that's dope." I said, "Can you teach me?" She was like, "Yeah." So we went to Joann Fabrics literally on our lunch break. I bought that oatmeal yarn. I bought they were they were big knitting needles, probably about this long, wood, and she taught me how to knit. So for years I actually knitted until I met my fiance when we moved to the city right before our son was born when she was pregnant. I was sitting back at my computer by my back door, and um she's like, and I was knitting. She's like, "Babe, you should learn how to crochet. It's faster." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I know. How hard would that be?" She goes, "Babe, just look into it." So I got on YouTube. And in 30 minutes, I had a very crappy looking holy hat. Um, and then I kind of never stopped. And over the years, I've learned how to, because I used to loom knit as well, right? So I used to use the loom and knit hats, but that used to take me about 3.5 hours to make one hat because of how long that process takes.
Right.
And crocheting has cut my time in more than half.
I mean, I literally saw you knit a hat on the stage at H&H in that 1 hour. You were practically done. You were like closing
Yes,
the
yes.
top of the hat and talking at the same time, which like, I mean, it does take extra time, right? Because being distracted by questions.
Yes, yeah, but I've learned how to. I mean, a lot of us do it, right? A lot of us will sit down. Usually, I'll sit down. I'll turn on a series that I see, and then I'll just start crocheting. Like that's how I got all these. I've just been watching. I think I watched. What's that? It's a new series on Netflix. One Piece. It's called One Piece. It was an anime that they've turned into like a actual uh, show with real people. So this is what I've been doing because I'm making something else, people. You guys wait, it's gonna be real dope.
Well, okay, so let's talk about your fighting career.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go into fighting? And were the people that you interacted with there surprised by your crocheting?
First and foremost, so MMA. What got me into MMA? Actually, I was about 330 pounds. I was a bit of a degenerate in life. And I had a buddy that was throwing an MMA fight at the College of Lake County in Lake County, Illinois, in Grays Lake, Illinois, actually. Um, and he was like, "Hey, Maurice, do you want to fight?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll fight," because at the time, my friends used to call me Reese Cup because they knew I didn't like to fight. I just didn't like to fight. I didn't grow up fighting. My brother was the D1 football player. My sister's name, they nicknamed her Debo. So nobody really messed with me, you know? And I was a little scared. So I took the fight to show my friends that I wasn't afraid to fight. Well, what I didn't know is after I TKO'd him in the third round, 30 days, I literally walked to a gym. 30 days later, I hopped into the cage with no experience. And I TKO'd him in the third round. I didn't realize that I would like it that much and I would keep fighting. That's literally how I started fighting. It was just by chance. I didn't grow up fighting. I didn't long to be an MMA fighter. I didn't even watch the sport. I didn't even watch the sport. I was concerned with like being a fashion designer and doing design, designing clothes. It still interests me till
Right.
this day.
Was it
Um,
intimidating to take out your crochet out and like while waiting for another fight?
no, because I was already knitting and doing that stuff, and I lived in Chicago, so I would get on the CTA, the bus. I crochet on the bus, I crochet on the train, I crochet at the park. So I was already used to that. I just knew that when I started doing MMA, um, I just knew it was going to be different enough. Hence the reason for my name. My fight name is the Crochet Boss. It used to be the Pirate, right? But then I was like, ain't nobody gonna remember that dumb name. And I told my buddy, I was like, man, you know, I was thinking about like my fight name, man. I think I'm gonna go by the Crochet Boss. And he stopped. He goes, "That's it." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Listen, Maurice, ain't nobody gonna care about none of that fight. And they're gonna hear the Crochet Boss, and they're gonna be intrigued. They're gonna want to know why you chose that name, and they'll soon see that, Maurice, when they see what you make." So it was a way for me personally to take two of the things. One thing I was falling in love with, and the other thing that was already deep embedded in me, to put them together. Um, and a lot of the promotions like it. It's
Right.
different, it's different. It's it's different. But a lot of people tell me this too. Some say, and this really makes me upset. One dude kept telling me it's a great gimmick. I'm like, man, this is not a gimmick. I've been crocheting I've been doing fiber art, not just crocheting. I've been doing fiber art for like 16 years. I've only been a fighter for like maybe going on 14. So this was way before this was.
Well, let me
So,
ask you about fighting because my kids did some kung fu and I've been to a bunch of tournaments, so I've seen how it's done. But like
uh-huh.
most people probably don't. How much free time do you have during the tournament? Like when you're there at the fight, like how much of it is actually fighting and how much is downtime when you can crochet?
Um, so if you're the main event or a co-main event, you got media stuff to do, right? But if you're not, you chilling all week. There's nothing to do. You get your workout in, but I'm a heavyweight. I don't really have to like work out and cut weight. Usually fighters are cutting weight
Right.
and they're miserable. They can't eat. You know what I mean? I'm a heavyweight. I don't have to worry about that. So my fight weeks were I'd be in the hotel room, like especially during COVID. So during COVID, I was in the UFC when COVID broke out, and the UFC was still throwing fights, but we were quarantined. They would quarantine us at the Residence Inn right next to the Raiders Stadium in Vegas, which we couldn't leave there, period. So this is when like crocheting was like life, you know. A lot of guys bring video games. I just brought yarn. I made things, and I handed them out and I gave it to some of the people I liked in the organization, because they'll never forget where they got that from. You give somebody a t-shirt after a couple wears, they're never going to wear that again. I give somebody a hat. When it gets cold, they're going to be looking for that hat.
You also sell your things. So how the idea of selling came in?
All right. So this is back when I was still knitting. This is before I started. I was loom knitting hats before I started crocheting them. And I had made like 15 to 20 pieces. And it was cold. I lived in Chicago. So I hopped on the red line from Fullerton, the Fullerton Red Line. I got off at the where you get off to walk to the Bear Stadium. I believe it's like Roosevelt or something like that. I got off on Roosevelt and I went to the tailgating. Snowing, cold, Chicago, all Bears colors. And I walked through the tailgating with those like the coat racks that have all the
Right.
right. So I put the hats and headbands on the coat rack. I just walked, me and my buddy. He went down there with me. And you'd be surprised. I was out of there in less than 35 minutes with everything sold, $500 in my hand or something like that. It's a couple $100. And I was like, oh, I got something here. And I've been kind of selling them ever since. I haven't, because I make everything, it's hard to build a lot of stuff because I train as well. I train for right now. My teammate John Jones is in camp to fight at Madison Square Garden in November. So camp has started, swimming, running. Between camp, I get now that I've been off, I've been really digging into crocheting and like really, I'm trying to make something here. So usually, I mean, if I could spend a couple hours a day on crocheting. There's quite a bit of time to do it. It doesn't take long. You can get a little bit done and you can put it down. You can get a little bit done and you can put it down. Especially when I'm making granny squares right now. I can get during this conversation, I probably could get 3 or 4 granny squares done, if not more.
How much time do you, like, if you would guesstimate, how much time per day do you crochet?
um, in an ideal world, I would be able to spend a couple hours daily to crochet. Um, but depending on what the schedule looks like, at least an hour though.
Right.
At least an hour. Or some days I'll do this. I won't crochet for, and this does happen sometimes. So when I'm in a fight camp or if I'm training a lot, my hands hurt. Because I'm grabbing, I'm punching, so my hands literally hurt. So I don't crochet like when I'm in a fight camp a whole lot, because my hands hurt. But once I'm able to, like I'll do what I've done lately. I'll spend all day crocheting. I'll sit in the same spot and I'll spend all day crocheting, seeing what I can make. I could probably make about some of my flip hats. I'll probably make 4 of those in a day.
Right.
Takes me about an hour and a half to crochet it, and then there's probably about 30 to 45 minutes of finishing, weaving everything in, making the tags. I make all my own tags. So make the tag, go ahead and stain the leather and all that stuff. So a couple hours a day, ideally.
When you crochet, do you always crochet to sell nowadays, or do you make something for yourself or for gifts?
I don't always crochet to sell. So half the time I'm just crocheting just to crochet. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. Like I recently made they were big granny squares that I turned into like a wearable garment. I've actually been on and off doing that for months because I didn't know what it was gonna be. I just had an idea of what I wanted it to be, but I didn't really know until recently, and I finished it finally. But I don't even know what I'm gonna do with it. Actually, I'm gonna wear it. I think I got
It
an
looks
event
really
at
good
some
on
point.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I got an event like next month because I started acting recently. Um, and I was actually in my first movie recently too, which is awesome.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So I maybe I'll wear it to that event.
Oh, you totally should. You know what? That would be brilliant.
That'd be the best place to wear it, right? People be like, "Whoa, where'd you buy that?" I made it. Like, oh, what's your name?
I mean, it's definitely a great idea. Well, you called yourself fiber artist, and I recently have been asking, Rowan designers if they consider themselves fiber artists or crafters. What's your thinking about it?
Well, the reason why I said fiber is because most of the stuff I do is with yarn, right? Um, most of everything I do, I mean, I'm looking at all my yarn. However, I feel like a crafter may use yarn in their crafts, okay? But a crafter would be somebody who, like I took beer cans, right? Took beer cans. Actually, I'll show you real quick. I used to take beer cans and, I used to be a beer con. I used to love me some beer. And I would cut the can and I would make coasters. So like it's normal beer that you'd use. I would cut the cans and I'd fit them and I make coasters out of all the beer cans. Right. So I try to find the coolest ones I could, and then we painted the back. I haven't finished these. I'll probably rip the back off and I'll put cork on the bottom. Actually, no, I'll rip the back off and then I will epoxy. I will epoxy this and then I'll put cork on the bottom. Right. I feel like this is crafting, right? Scrapbook, you're crafting. There's another artist who takes he'll take like a brush, an old brush, make that the mustache, and take like piano keys and make the teeth. That's crafting to me. It's like art and crafting, right? I feel like if you're a fiber artist, that means you're doing everything out of fiber. You're using some sort of, I'm not talking about fabric. I'm talking about yarn. I could be wrong, but that's how I see it. But
So, but
yeah, we're talking. This is how many I've made.
you've been busy, right? Well, now that you don't drink beer, is there like a plan for those coasters?
Um, I'm gonna finish them, and I had a store on Etsy, but I had to stop it because I just couldn't keep up with it because I was training a lot. I
Mm.
was in the season of the PFL, and you fight every 7 to 10 weeks, or 8 to 10 weeks. Fight every 8 to 10 weeks, and so when you get back from a fight, you go right back into training, and it's just train, 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 and that's what it's been since before the beginning of the year for me. Um, so this is the first time I'm actually able to, I'm on unfortunately concussion protocol because I took a nap. I took a bit of a nap my last fight.
Well, you
So
mentioned somewhere in one of the interviews that I saw that you're thinking of retiring in about four years or so.
yes.
What's your plan for your retirement? Like, where do you see yourself going? Do you think you're gonna be concentrating more on your acting career or crochet?
So after I'm 37, so and I've been in the game 14 years. I've seen guys. I haven't made it to the highest of the high of the high, but I've fought for some very reputable promotions. And for most of my career, I never thought about what retirement would look like, right? Because in my head, when you're younger, you feel like I'll be able to do this for a long time. I got time. Well, at 37, you're starting to realize that, that time is slowly, no matter how you cut it, my time is coming to a close. So after this season and it ending the way it did with the PFL and not how I assumed I was going to fight in DC, close to my brother's house in November and win a world championship and $1 million. But I've always wanted to land in the in the yarn space and having my own brand of yarn where maybe I'm part of the dyeing process of those colors. And because a lot of people always talk about, man, your color selection is always good. Your your colorways are always great. So I'm definitely gonna dig into acting, right? Acting is awesome because there's not an age for actors, right? I can act forever.
Yeah.
I can, as long as I can remember a line, I can act. Um, but crocheting and being a part of this community and the yarn and crafting, and that's kind of where my passion and my love lies, kind of. So a lot of people will go out and they'll spend a lot of money on this type of stuff. Um, and then they lose it and everybody has it. There's something about being able to go to a store, buy some yarn, and put a hat together in about 2 hours that somebody can keep for a decade plus. If you take care of it, I have friends actually, funny story. I made this I actually made this what was it? It's an infinity scarf with a hood, right? I forgot I made that. I made it way back when I was still living in Illinois before I even moved to Minnesota. And I went to go see my buddy after the H&H. I stayed with a friend that lives in Lombard. And he was like, "Man, you remember you made this for me, Mo?" I said, what do you mean?" So he showed me. It still looked new. He goes, "I wear it every winter." I
Wow.
said, "Do you?" He goes, "Maurice, I wear this every single winter." And it didn't even have a tag on it. That's how long ago I made it. It's before I even made tags and
Right.
tag my merchandise. But he's my best friend, so I put a tag on it for him while I was there. And then when I came home, I actually made one for one of the actors and sold it and sent it to Tennessee, the maroon one. So I forget some of the cool stuff I made, but that just goes to show you he's had that for over 10 years.
Right. No, I mean, those things are indestructible. Like my kid goes, I made him a hat and he goes rock climbing. And that hat has been through so much and it still looks brand new. I just have to wash it every once in a while for him and it
Yes,
looks brand new.
yes, exactly like this. These are the hats I make. These are my bread and butter. I've been making these for years. Some big, some small, headbands. But I've been really trying to get into making like wearable garments. Like I do want to make like, but with chunky yarn.
Right.
It's tough for me to use thin yarn because my hands are so big. And I guess I can get the right crochet hooks, right? Which these are probably my favorite hooks to use right now.
Oh, what
These
brand
are
is that?
Furrows crochet hooks.
What do you like about those?
Um, Couple things. I got like some of the metal ones, but they're too heavy for me. I got I got some wooden ones too. They're just too light for me. These are I think these are acrylic or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what they're made out of. Um, but it's this. It's this for me. It's this thick part in the middle,
Right.
right? So I'm not doing this, trying to crochet. Um, it makes sure my hand doesn't hurt as much. When I use like a small hook, my hands hurt. So I got like all their hooks in these. And even when there's with their smaller hooks, they're still kind of big here. The only other thing about the smaller hooks is I break them. So
Right.
these acrylic ones, I break the small hooks. That's another reason why I don't use their small hooks anymore because I've broken like two of them while I was crocheting. Maybe I'm a little too aggressive.
Oh, you just probably don't know your own strength there when it comes to crocheting. Well, tell me about your experience at H&H because it must have been, I mean, I know you used to being in front of the cameras. I know you used to talking to a bunch of people. But when you're coming in front of crafters and industry professionals, how did it feel to be there on that stage?
For one, I was kind of like honored that they even reached out to me and asked me to come speak. You know, I was nervous. It's like my first time I was on set recently. You know, it's my space, but professionally, like it's not my space. I don't, so I was very nervous, but um, she was just asking me questions about me and about, where I come from and what I enjoy, and that's easy. I can talk for hours about a lot of things, especially if I know what I'm talking about. And when it comes to yarn and crocheting and what I like about colors and different yarns and what I choose to use over other yarns and why I choose, you know, I can speak on that stuff all day because I do all the legwork. Like a lot of people may think that I don't actually crochet the stuff, but the reality is I'm the guy who does the shopping. I'm the guy who'll go to Joann's and walk out later with $300 worth of yarn. I'm that guy. And if I could have more and have a good storage place for it, I probably would have more. You kind of can't have too much. Yeah, you
Let's
can. Go
talk
ahead.
about your shopping experience, because one of the reasons why H&H, at least that was what they said when they invited you to the stage, was to break the stereotypes, to show the store owners that knitters and crocheters come in every shape, race, and gender, right?
Yeah.
What's your experience like when you come to a yarn store? Like, have you ever had strange experiences? How do people like think that you don't belong?
Um, nothing just that I can think of that I've been. No, I think true crafters and fiber artists and people that I meet back there, if they're curious to know if I do it after watching me shop for yarn, they're like, yeah, he does it. He has to.
Right.
He has to. Because I'm sitting there like this. This is what I'm doing, literally. I'm picking up the yarn. I'm like, I'll reach over and be like, mm, yeah, yeah, that's it. That's it. That's literally how I shop. You know, I touch, I go, I want to touch it. I want to feel it. I want to, texture is a thing for me. Like when I'm looking for yarn, I'm looking for something that's gonna be soft, something that I would want to wear on my head, right? So, no, and even in Minnesota, when I lived in Minnesota, you would think, right? You would think that when I'm in there, they'd be like, oh, they're a little taken back. But when I see people in line and they look at my cart got all of this yarn in it. The first thing the woman asked me behind me, "What are you making?" So I showed her a couple of pictures on Instagram of what I made, and she was just like, That's when it clicked. Like, no, he really does do this. Wow. She said, "That's beautiful." Or sometimes I'll bring my project with me to make sure I get the right color, Um, and I'll show some of the men and women in line the product that I'm making. Like, oh, I'm gonna finish this, and so no, they probably don't assume that I'm doing. I assume they think I'm there to pick it up for my fiance, but they
Well,
soon realize
talking
that.
of her, I mean, honestly, she is the biggest supporter of yours. I have never met anybody who was so enthusiastic about your crocheting. Like, she watched you on stage with, like, without blinking, basically. And she was jokingly saying that she can be your manager and like reach out to her. Does she crochet?
Yes, I taught her how to crochet.
Has she ever tried to take away your yarn?
Yes, she actually gets mad at me. Let me say, she gets mad at me. She's like, "Babe, I can't crochet anything because you don't want me to touch your yarn." I said, "No, no, no. But when I buy colors, specific colors, you can't come taking the colors I just bought." Because what if I got, or sometimes I'll buy yarn that I think I'll use in the future. I've learned how to be like, I haven't used it in this long. Go ahead, baby, if you want to use it, right? Um, she doesn't really understand how, I sign up for both of the newsletters for Joanne, Michaels, all that. So it's very strategic when I go buy yarn. Okay, I go when the truck comes in. I know when the trucks come. I know when the trucks come in because if you go after the trucks, it's gone. All the good stuff is gone. So um, I know when the trucks come in. I know when the sales are. I know when the sales of the sales are, and that's when I go and I stock up. And I may not even need much, but you get to grabbing, and then you grab more, and you're like, they might not have this. I need three. So like recently, I just placed an order on Joann's. I think I bought 35 skeins of yarn.
Well, let's talk about your yarn stash and how it evolved over the years. Tell me, like, how much yarn do you have? Like, are we talking 50 skeins, 100 skeins, enough to last a few families for a lifetime.
Well, shoot, I got maybe close to 150 to 200 skeins easy. Maybe 100, 100, 150 tops, somewhere in between there, for sure. For sure. I mean, I just bought for 34. You know, actually, there's one I'm supposed to return, but I'm not going to return it. It's on my door. So 35. It doesn't count all this stuff, all that stuff, all that stuff. It doesn't count the stuff that I've, this is almost a skein here, that I've rolled in the balls. Doesn't count the stuff I got, some of the stuff I got from H&H. Like, look, this is this is this is actually some of the some of the yarn I got from H&H. I haven't used yet.
I'm sure you'll find something amazing to do with it.
Yeah, I will, definitely. I like how chunky this is. I just got to figure out this other thing, right? This is thicker than what I normally use, right? So I have to find something that I can make out of this that'd be cool. Yeah. And I got to find the right hook. I maybe need a bigger hook than I got. I got big hooks, but I may need a bigger hook.
Well, do you like when people think about you, they might think this is a perfect guy for some affiliate deals or sponsored deals. Are you being sponsored by anyone?
Not at the current moment, actually. I got all the cards from H&H. I've been waiting for some of my MMA stuff to slow down, which it has now. So I know you were talking about retiring. I was actually thinking about retiring after this last fight. But I made the executive decision. I just can't do that. I can't go out, get knocked out. I got to go knock a couple people out before I retire. Or get a dub before I retire. But for a long time, I used to put all my eggs in my MMA basket, right? Everything revolves around MMA. For the first time in a long time, everything revolves around everything but MMA right now. You know, I do MMA. I love MMA. It keeps me sane. Training, as weird as it sounds, getting punched in the face when you walk out of training, you're like, oh, that was a good day, knowing you got a bumps and bruises and scrapes and cut because it happens. Um, but this is something that's it's been a long time coming, and I want to dig into it and see what I can do. I have a lot of knowledge of crocheting. I feel like a lot of years. I don't use a lot of. I tell people this all the time. I don't use a lot of patterns. I just start crocheting, and however it comes out usually. Like I have some ideas on how we're gonna put these granny squares together, and I watched a couple videos on just a couple options on how to put them together. But you guys wait till this thing's done. It's gonna be all me.
Well, have you ever considered a teaching career in crochet?
No, because I got to figure out the right way to. I don't. No, I haven't. I've never thought about it, but I don't know. I guess I gotta watch some videos on how to teach crochet. I don't
I
know how
mean,
to
I
teach.
feel like you're unstoppable. Like you're learning everything from YouTube like in 20 seconds. I feel like you totally can teach.
True, true. But what's the hardest thing about crocheting? I feel like this is the hardest thing about crocheting right here. Literally, literally, this tension thing is the hardest thing about crocheting. Everything else is pretty simple. And then just learning your stitches. I guess, yeah, I know a lot of stitches. I really only do one stitch for the most part. I just do a variation of that stitch. Yeah, I do other stitches, but I really like what I do.
How about designing? Like, how about publishing your patterns?
I also have thought about getting with. So when I was doing some work with Lion Brand, they were gonna. We talked about it, but we never got to it. Um, I could publish some of my patterns because I know, I most of my hat, just like my headband. I'm sure if somebody makes a headband that's similar, but I learned how to make that headband on a flight after a kickboxing match. Um, I was just trial and error, and over the years, I figured out, how they say the less cuts you have in your yarn, sometimes the better. I got 2 cuts. I make 1 cut. No, I only make 1 cut in the yarn and then it's done. But I used to do a lot more. Here, I'll show you. Check this out. These are my headbands. Probably out of everything I make, these are probably the most popular, especially for women.
It's very pretty.
Just one piece. So this is actually part of a line that I'm gonna probably get back into doing. So everybody knows after you make something, right? Sometimes you got this much yarn. Sometimes you got a little ball. You don't know. You don't have enough to do anything with, right? Now I'm at a point where I got more of that yarn, so I just added to that. So for a while, what I would do is I would take all those, no matter what it was, no matter what the color or what it was, and I would roll them in a ball probably the size of my head, right? Now I would take that whole ball and would just start making stuff. And I used to call it "What the bleep," but the WTF, right? Because my idea was there's no rhyme or reason for the colorway. It makes you say what the, but I've figured out a PG way, okay, to censor it, and we can call it what the fiber. I still get WTF,
I
which
love that.
that's
It's very clever.
Yep. Yes, I can call it what the fiber. I still get WTF, and that's the idea of the line, right? Most people see what the WTF to be like, oh, what the, but it means what the fiber. So I'm gonna get back into making these because you have no idea what comes out. So everyone's unique in its own right, like this.
I actually really like this idea.
Yeah. So this is something that I do, and I make it usually. The Crochet Boss tag will go here, and then I would make a WTF tag that would go here, which I attach them with buttons. So I keep. If anybody knows, right? Everybody they'll go to a store to buy buttons. Let me tell you guys a secret. This is the secret. Depending on where you live at, every garage sale is gonna have them for you, okay? But like in Minnesota, if you live in Minnesota, it's a good place to do it at. Go to garage sales, look for those cookie tins, okay? Those holiday cookie tins. Usually in those holiday cookie tins, it's full of buttons.
Interesting.
They're probably selling that cookie tin for like $15. And some of them don't even know how expensive they are, so they'll sell it for like $5. Because if you go to the store, you're gonna pay $4.99 for 3 buttons or 4 buttons, right? And depending on how many buttons you need, it could be a lot. Now you can't choose your buttons, right? But you get a variety, which I did that over years, and I got so many buttons. And I got a bunch of buttons from grandma and grandma's always put the buttons in the cookie tins. This is how they come.
I think like I might have that cookie tin somewhere in one of my cabinets actually.
One of the blue cookie tins that have the little
Right.
cookies and the little white things.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 I think I have some there.
I got 3 of them over there full of buttons, literally.
Right.
That's how you find buttons, everybody.
That's where you keep them. Thanks so much
That's
for
where you
sharing
keep
this
them.
secret, Maurice. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you again at H&H because I've heard they invited you back this year. So I'm hoping to run into you there again and say hi to you in person and see what else you're gonna come up with.
By then, I would hope I'd have a lot of things going on. I want to make a dress. I think that's what I may be what may be on the horizon next is to figure out a way. And right now, I'm really trying to learn how to make different collars in the neck area. You know, um, because I lack in that area. But with YouTube University,
I'm
we
sure.
can look at a bunch of different collars, and then I'll take all that information and I'll figure out a way to make my own. That's usually what I do. I figure out a way to make it like kind of similar to or something that I'm looking for. I have an idea of what I want the collar to look like, but I need to make sure I do the increases and decreases to make the neck right.
Well, I'm hoping that, as soon as you retire, one day soon after that, we'll do Where Are They Now kind of episode, and you'll show me that dress and you'll show me like all the things that you worked on.
Oh, it's gonna be a lot. By that time, so I have this dream of my life, right, to build a container home, right? A big container, not big, but just like 6 sides with a courtyard in the middle, right? Almost like an octagon, like what I fight in, but not 8 sides, only 6. I think it's a hexagon with a courtyard in the middle, right? 2 stories. But inside my home, right, or one of the containers I want to be my crafting space, where when I say crafting, because it's not just yarn, I want to have a potter's wheel. I want a kiln because I did pottery when I was in high school. I want a kiln as well so I can, make bowls and stuff. And then I want a very large yarn and design space with just one whole container. That's all it is. You walk in one side, it's like a crafting wonderland.
That sounds actually awesome.
And then I got an idea for a TV show too, which would be great. Could you imagine me traveling around the world to like craft and art fairs and meeting artists, like meeting them and them showing me how they craft and what they do? Who wouldn't watch me do that? I'd watch me do
I,
it.
I Well, if anybody's watching who can make any of those dreams happen, please contact Maurice. I'm going to put all the information about how you can find him. And meanwhile, follow him on Instagram, buy a hat perhaps, and show some
Yeah,
support.
just reach out to me. So I've been doing a lot of things by word of mouth because I don't have a store up and live.
Right.
And I look at all of my messages on Instagram.
Yeah, you
I don't
actually
respond.
no, you do respond. You actually were very responsive when I reached out to you. So
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't look at you got to look at the
requests.
the message requests.
Right.
Well, once every couple days, I'll go in there and look at the message requests just in case somebody reached out to me about getting a hat or a headband, or I had somebody commission me to make them a Freddy Krueger sweater,
Oh, that's interesting.
which I'm thinking about doing that. But I'm also I need to partner up with a yarn company, so I can use all their yarn and they can put it on their site because it's going to be a dope sweater. I may even make it for myself.
Well, if any of the yarn companies are watching, I would highly recommend Maurice as the partner in crime.
Partner in crime. I'm good. Hey, I'm really good in person. Okay, that's where I thrive. Okay, in person I thrive. At least I think so.
Well, thank you so much, Maurice. Thank you for being my guest today. It was lovely to see you again and get to know a little bit more about you. And I hope to see you next year at H&H again.
I will be there. Thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.